Family pet destroyed because a police constable failed to carry out a simple health and safety assessment. After the government's £252 million face mask calamity just weeks ago, now 750,000 COVID tests have been recalled over fears of their sterility. Kent County Council threatened concerned resident over making sure speed signs can be seen by drivers. Yet another care home under investigation as care home abuse and neglect seems to be becoming more and more popular. This and much, much more coming up. Don't forget, I try to put these reports out daily, Monday to Friday. So please remember to subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss any future uploads. And if you do appreciate the work I do and understand that many of these topics result in little to no YouTube monetization, please consider joining the channel Patreon for as little as just £3 per month to help me continue providing this content. Hello, ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls, innies, outies, and of course in-betweeners. My name's Dan and welcome back to another PAP Reports. Today is not Monday to Friday, it's Sunday, the 16th of August 2020. Last week, 37-year-old Heather Westwell from Wythenshawe was at Manchester Magistrates Court after her Shar-Pei type dog was destroyed for doing, well, what a dog's supposed to do. She was also ordered to pay £120 in fines, £117 in court costs and £200 compensation to PC Jackson from Manchester Police after he attended her home and entered her garden. Jackson was at the home to pick up a key so that he could drop off a stolen car after it had been recovered. When he arrived, he opened the gate and noticed that the front door was open, so he started walking up the path shouting, "Hello, it's the police." Westwell's Shar-Pei is said to have ran out of the property and grabbed the constable's arm, sinking its teeth in. After a few seconds, the dog let go as PC Jackson crapped his pants and made a beeline for the safety of the other side of the gate, after which the dog went back inside. Westwell then came out and told the constable that the dog doesn't often come out. He likes kids, just not adults, and that the dog didn't like anyone in uniform, not even the postman. Jackson was left with bruises and 2 puncture wounds to his arm, which was left bleeding. He's said to have received hospital treatment and then took a whole week off to let his arm heal. I mean, I don't suppose he could have just put a bandage around it and carried on with his work, but what do I know? Not content with accepting that he ballsed up by not risk assessing the situation properly, in his victim personal statement, PC Jackson said, "I went to the address to get a car key for her vehicle which had been stolen. She was aware someone was getting the car and didn't secure the dog. Due to this, I ended up getting bitten by the dog." No, Jackson, due to your ignorance, you ended up getting bitten by the dog. I bet my bottom dollar that you never even told her what time you'd be turning up, because police never do. Do you think that she's just going to keep the dog locked in a room in the house all day whilst she's waiting for you to turn up? You know, so she was at her. So it was her fault for having the dog loose on her property when you entered without first risk assessing. I don't think so. It was said that the police had no information on the family pet, meaning that he clearly hadn't been involved in any previous incidents. In fact, her own defence lawyer said that the dog was within the confines of the curtilage of the property. However, thanks to PC Jackson not taking responsibility for his failure to risk assess, Westwell was told to have the family pet destroyed. PC Jackson, I hope you're pleased with yourself. You're a cretin, and your failure to make a simple admission to failing to carry out a simple assessment, instead of being so wrapped up in a false idea that you have some overarching powers to do just what the hell you like without consequence, has meant that a much-loved family pet that clearly hadn't ever injured anyone else before has had to be destroyed. It's a dog's job to protect its owner and property, and if you had been more aware of your surroundings, you wouldn't have been bit. It was clearly your own fault. Jagjeet Dhillon, a former Bedfordshire detective constable, was found last week in a misconduct hearing, 9 months after he resigned, to have committed gross misconduct. Better late than never, I guess. Jagjeet had denied the charges throughout. However, the allegations of gross misconduct were upheld in that he had committed gross misconduct for authority, respect and courtesy, equality and diversity, duties and responsibilities, and discreditable conduct. The panel heard from 4 witnesses who gave evidence that he had acted inappropriately towards them, including sending pictures and suggestive comments via social media. The panel said that if he had still been serving, he would have been dismissed without notice for all the good that would do. Assistant Chief Constable Shan Basra said no one should be made to feel uncomfortable while at work, and Jagjeet Dhillon's behaviour towards colleagues who would have looked up to him was entirely unacceptable and fell well below the standards we expect. Equality and respect are core values here at Bedfordshire Police, and absolutely every officer and member of staff should be treated with dignity and respect. I'm pleased the officers felt supported to speak out. By collectively challenging such behaviour, we will continue to create a positive culture throughout the organisation. Well, Basra, I'm afraid it's going to take a hell of a lot more than holding a misconduct hearing for somebody who's already left the police force in order to create a positive culture in the police. After last week's report about Ayanda Capital, an investment and trading company supplying 50 million face masks to the UK government as part of a £252 million contract, and those face masks being practically useless, we now hear about 750,000 COVID test kits from diagnostic firm Randox, which appear now to be useless too and have been recalled due to safety concerns. The recall, ordered by the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, comes after the UK government instructed care homes and members of the public to immediately stop using Randox testing kits in mid-July following fears over sterility. Strangely enough, Randox was awarded the contract in March without the contract ever being put out to tender, meaning no other companies were able to bid on the contract. Now, I'm sure there's someone out there that has the time to see which government official has links with this company. I'm sure there's a few backhanders going on at the expense of people's health and at the expense of the taxpayers. The department has commissioned an accredited laboratory to verify the sterility of the specific supply of Randox swabs, according to a formal international standard for sterility testing. The results of the investigation are expected in the coming weeks. Randox have recalled all test kits as a precaution to ensure paused kits do not continue to be sold whilst the safety checks are ongoing. The tests are not officially CE marked, assessed before placed on the market in the European Economic Area, and have not received an exemption to be placed on the market during the pandemic. So they're not officially marked, although they have been officially accepted by the government for use. Is this the kind of thing you really want? Let's face it, if the government had to use any of the stuff they're trying to force onto us, they certainly would make sure it was tested and followed all protocols. But if they can't even get the PPE and test kits right, what makes you think the vaccines will be any different? Haringey, North London, 4th of August 2020. Jordan Walker-Brown was attending as a protester an event outside Tottenham Police Station to mark the 9th anniversary of the 2011 London riot sparked by the death of Mark Duggan. For those of you who don't know, Mark Duggan was a 29-year-old who was shot dead by police in Ferry Lane, Tottenham on Thursday, 4th of August 2011, after police were allegedly trying to arrest him on suspicion of being in possession of a handgun. Now, there's plenty of information on Mark Duggan online, so I'm not going to waste your time going into more depth on that. However, Jordan Walker-Brown, strangely enough, was also suspected to be carrying a gun on the 4th of August this year when police attempted to arrest him. Brown ran from police, and during his attempt to escape, as he hurdled a wall, he was tasered and subsequently fell the 6-foot drop on the other side of the wall onto a canal towpath and was left seriously injured. Now, I do want to point out here that although I don't agree with police being routinely issued with firearms, and a taser here in the UK is classed as a firearm, he ran. And let's face it, if you run, bad things are going to happen. You may as well let the police unlawfully search you, unlawfully detain you, and then deal with it afterwards. We should all know by now that police act first and think later, and when you give an incompetent, touchy cop a weapon, things are going to go bad real quick. Now, that doesn't mean that Brown deserves his injury, which turned out to be more serious than they initially thought, as he is now paralysed from the chest down and wheelchair bound. It appears that after police finally detained Brown, he was not in possession of a weapon after all, and so was charged only with possession with intent to supply. The Metropolitan Police Constable who discharged his taser is under investigation by the IOPC for the alleged offence of causing grievous bodily harm. Now, isn't it funny how all of these assault charges the police get are stepped way down from what we would get as a member of the public? A copper kneeling on someone's neck gets common assault, which is the lowest form of assault. We would likely get APH or assault with intent. This cop who discharged his taser and left the lad paralysed, albeit not entirely his own fault, as the lad would certainly have suffered serious injuries anyway after jumping the wall. But yet still, it's a firearm the plod used and the offence should reflect that. But no, give them the lowest possible charge you can think of because of that blue line privilege. Brown said, I have got to keep positive. I've got no choice. I celebrated my 24th birthday in hospital, but I just pray on this, and whatever comes, I'm taking it each day. I'm just hoping to get justice out of this. I want the police officer or officers who've done this so I can do better in life. I want justice. And although the cop should certainly be charged with something more serious than GBH, in my opinion, it has to be taken into account that Brown ran. Brown jumped the 6-foot wall. Although he didn't know there was a 6-foot drop the other side, he did it, which, as I've said, would almost certainly cause him severe injury, even without the taser, so that does need to be taken into account. I think what this does is highlights how dangerous not only trigger-happy, incompetent police carrying weapons can be, but also being a dick and running from the police. The chances are he would have got a slap on the wrist for possession or maybe a fine and would have got on with the rest of his life, but he made a spur-of-the-moment decision to run, and the cop made a decision based on training and so-called experience to fire his weapon at somebody running away, which in my book is far more serious than fight or flight mode. But both are to blame here, and I wanted to add this story to highlight that not only are many cops complete arse-hats, but members of the public, we need to make the right decisions. We need to hold a moral high ground when it comes to dealing with the police, staying calm, keeping your integrity, dealing with the consequences when you do something wrong, and fighting back against unlawful stops, searches, arrests in the proper way if you haven't. So although this isn't entirely about police abusing their powers, I still thought it was relevant in order for this channel to have balanced reports. North Wales Police and Crime Commissioner Arfon Jones can come to my barbecue anytime he likes. Well, not anytime. We'd have to make an appointment and I'd have to put away all of my legal stuff first. But he can come to my barbecue anytime after that. Speaking out last week, Mr Jones had written to MPs urging them to support his campaign to end a 49-year ban on psilocybin, magic mushrooms, with it reclassified as a potentially revolutionary medicine that could save the NHS billions as a treatment for PTSD and depression. Psilocybin is a key component of the drug the Beatles used in the 1960s and which generations of revellers used to go on a trip. Been there, done that. Mr Jones said new research from scientists clearly shows psilocybin has been wrongly classified as being harmful, adding that there has been a research blackout for nearly 50 years into the beneficial effect it can have. His call comes as the Adam Smith Institute think tank and the Conservative Drug Policy Reform Group call for a psilocybin rethink, especially with the coronavirus pandemic making many mental health conditions worse through social isolation and work-related stress. Now, I have to be honest, although I haven't touched drugs for many years, with the emergence of health conditions and the effects of certain drugs on those conditions, I don't think it's such a bad idea to investigate this more, and as somebody who suffers from recurring depression and EUPD myself, the rest of you can form an orderly queue behind me in order to get some. Arfon Jones, by the way, is a former cop, and it makes a change for a cop, former or current, to actually use their brain and overlook the stigma attached in a search for viable alternative medicines, which, if legalised for use, could actually help to reduce some crimes and would certainly have an effect on the number of certain offences being recorded. Now, you'll remember on the 4th of August we spoke about the aptly named PC Jemma Dicks, who got caught out noshing her for a You will remember on the 4th of August we spoke about the aptly named PC Jemma Dicks, who got caught out noshing off her sergeant's truncheon. Well, she didn't get caught in the act, but it all came out after Sergeant Adam Reed was accused of taking photos of female colleagues' feet. Well, Jemma Dicks' misconduct hearing has now concluded. After Dick's affair with Reed came to light, it was determined that the pair had been giving each other some oral relief on the regular all over Cardiff station. On Monday, the hearing in Pencoed was told that PC Dicks accepted the allegations against her, but argued that her breaches of professional behaviour only amounted to misconduct. Reid, who was obviously co-accused, seeing as it was his Todger she was noshing, left the force before the misconduct hearing and didn't attend the hearing, pretty much leaving Dicks to carry the ball bag. A Police Federation representative said that he had been communicating with the former sergeant about the hearing through his wife and told the hearing that Mr. Reid was claiming he only allowed PC Dicks to nosh him off on one occasion. But this was dismissed by the hearing, saying that they were relying on PC Dicks' admission to the multiple occasions during their 10-month affair. The hearing was also told that Reid was a predatory and manipulated PC Dicks during their relationship, with PC Dicks adding that she willingly performed the acts to please Mr. Reid and to avoid upsetting him, believing that they were in a relationship and after he had made threats to kill himself. It's amazing how messed up the police really are. They do something stupid and then blame it on mental health, as if that helps the situation. And the force just lap it up, when in fact it just makes you look even more incompetent. I mean, for God's sake, how mentally deficient does one have to be asked or told to leave the police force? These people are a danger. A cop who says they were coerced or manipulated into something by another cop is not fit to be a police constable. And the cop who manipulated or coerced the other also isn't fit to be a police constable. But this doesn't seem to matter to South Wales Police, as they gave Jemma Dicks a slap on the wrist for being easy to manipulate and welcomed her back to work. Yeah, just the kind of police constable you can rely on. I mean, this is ridiculous. It just continues to make the police a laughing stock. Police are supposed to be brave, have integrity, never waver from truth and justice, be uncorruptible and always do the right thing. And those who cannot or will not do those things don't deserve to be in the police. This sure as hell should be kicked out and made an example of, but the police won't do that because they'd be left with no police at all. We can imagine what Dick's going to be like when she next goes out on patrol and she tries to arrest somebody that recognises her face. I mean, are they going to have respect for her authority, or are they simply going to take the piss until she cries, just to be given a couple of weeks off while the rest of her constable mates make up some crime to teach the person a lesson for upsetting her? This is what happens, folks. It shouldn't, but it does. And it's all because our wonderful Great British Police Service hires such weak-minded snowflakes who can't take being told to do one, or who can't take their unlawful orders being ignored. Spineless cretins whose best defence is that they were manipulated or had mental health issues, and people still argue that we have the best police in the world. What planet are you living on? Former Essex Police Constable Tony Mowling, who tested positive for cocaine in June, has been found to have committed gross misconduct, and had he not already resigned, would have been dismissed without notice. Yay! Maybe he should have stuck to sucking off his sergeant. At least he would still have a job. Anyway, the hearing panel ruled on the 10th of August that Mowling would have been dismissed without notice if he had not already left his job, after the panel chairman said it was totally unacceptable for officers to take illegal drugs. Essex Chief Constable Ben Julian Harrington said illegal drugs destroy communities and ruin lives. Violence and exploitation go hand in hand with the sale of drugs, and we work really hard as a force to tackle this. He added that his force would not tolerate the use of drugs by officers or staff, and such activities undermine the trust our communities place in us. What little trust there is, you mean? Kent County Council are a bunch of funny sods. After warning a resident he may be liable for criminal damage after 20 years of Joe Ellis trimming a council hedge that kept growing over a speed limit sign in order to keep his neighbourhood safe. 59-year-old Joe Ellis has been trimming the hedges around road signs in his area for the past 2 decades, despite being urged by Kent County Council not to do so. After Joe moved to Herne Bay, he became concerned that speeding motorists couldn't see the roadsides, changing the limit from 60 to 40, which is a big change, an important change to note when you're driving. But after urging the local authority to maintain the area itself, he was warned of a potential case for criminal damage if he carried out any of the work to private vegetation and made it unsafe. However, Joe argues that leaving the growth as it is could risk people's lives, so instead he takes the initiative to cut back the foliage himself. He said, "We're all moaning at people driving at 60 miles an hour down that road, but you can't blame them if they can't see the signs telling them it's 40 miles an hour. You really are risking life and limb if you walk outside your driveway to try and alleviate that. I'm trying to make sure that all signs are visible to people." I could leave it as it is and risk people's lives with 60 miles an hour traffic in a 40 mile an hour zone, or take the initiative and do it myself. Now, Joe only takes the initiative twice a year, but his move could already have saved lives. However, the council, being the idiots they genuinely are, instead of making it a priority, they simply continue to leave the roadside vegetation to overgrow. Joe said that Kent County Council don't like me doing it, but I don't really care because it's a case of cutting them down in order to protect the residents of Bollockstone. This is a Kent County Council responsibility. This is what you pay taxes for. Joe said he's spoken to the council, but so far they won't do it. He added, I've been ringing them, but they haven't got the budget or the time, so they won't do it. We've seen severe accidents down this strip many a time over the years, even recently. A vagina for the county council said the authority does not suggest residents clear vegetation themselves, and a member of Kent County Council's highway team will visit the area to determine if further action is needed. Which simply means if we get to it, we get to it. If not, who cares? Former Police Scotland Chief Superintendent 49-year-old Gareth Blair found himself in a spot of bother after having to sign a sex offenders register after he and his mistress were spotted naked from the waist up, canoodling in the back of his Land Rover Discovery in broad daylight. The witnesses said that they noticed the half-naked couple were engaging in sexual activity when Blair's vehicle began to rock back and forth. The two men, who were in their own cars, then began to whoop and sound their horns before one of them started filming the daylight session on his mobile phone. Footage which later found its way to police professional standards. What a shame. Gareth Blair retired from Police Scotland earlier this year, as you would expect, in order to save his pension. When he appeared at Edinburgh Sheriff's Court on Monday, he pleaded guilty to a charge of committing a breach of the peace by engaging in sexual activity within his car whilst in a state of partial undress. Sheriff Adrian Cottam told Blair he had committed a wholly inappropriate, inexplicable and reprehensible act and decided to mark the officer by fining the retired officer £750. And I'm sure he's gutted by that fine. Hardly a dent in his approximate £80,000 final salary, £270,000 retirement payment lump sum, and annual £40,000 per year pension. Yeah, I'm sure he's devastated. Blair's mistress, 41-year-old Claire Mackle, wife of Lee Mackle, retired footballer, who was the woman Blair was caught with, did not attend court, as she had her not guilty pleas to the original offence accepted by the Crown. Blair pleaded guilty to conducting himself in a disorderly manner by engaging in sexual activity while in a state of partial undress within his motor vehicle in daylight hours and committing a breach of the peace at Hermiston Park and Ride, Edinburgh, on April 16th last year. Hermiston Park and Ride. How appropriate. Well, yet again, another perverted plot. I'm beginning to lose count of how many of these people that we're supposed to trust would rather screw you over. Or your missus. Consider this. You're sitting at home watching PAP Reports or your other favourite YouTube channels when suddenly you get a knock at the door. If you're not expecting anyone and you're not soft in the head, you will immediately grab your mobile and start recording as you approach the door. You see two figures through the frosted glass. You open the door and are met with two women wearing masks with clipboards. Women, because they are less likely than men to have issues with the news they are about to break to you. You ask what they want. They then proceed to tell you that at some point, in some location, you were in some distance to someone who has now presented with symptoms of coronavirus, and that you are now ordered to self-isolate for 10 days. No warning, no time to prepare, just completely out of the blue. Well, this is what's potentially about to start happening after public health officials announced plans to strengthen regional test and trace powers in England. And if you didn't pick up your phone and start recording, you would have no proof of this absurdity actually happening to you. In pilot schemes, this has meant that local authorities have been able to visit homes where national contact tracers have been unable to reach them. NHS Test and Trace will provide local authorities across England with a dedicated team of contact tracers for local areas. NHS Test and Trace Public Health England and local authorities will be able to work together to ensure, apparently, that more people are reached. Or so the Department for Health and Social Care have said. Officials say that local areas will be given ring-fenced team from the National Service, and if the dedicated national team cannot make contact with a person in a set amount of time, the local public health officials can use the data provided by NHS Test and Trace to follow up. Baroness Dido Harding, Executive Chair of NHS Test and Trace, said NHS Test and Trace is one of the largest contact tracing and testing systems anywhere in the world, and was built rapidly, drawing on the UK's existing health protection networks to stop the spread of coronavirus. As we learn more about the spread of the disease, we are able to move to our planned next step and become even more effective in tackling the virus. After successful trials in a small number of local areas, I'm very pleased to announce that we are now offering this integrated, localised approach to all local authorities to ensure we can reach more people in their communities and stop the spread of COVID-19. The Department for Health and Social Care said all the data from national and local teams will be fed into the same system. It added that the National Service will move from 18,000 to 12,000 contact tracers on August the 24th, with remaining teams to be deployed as part of dedicated local tracers. Meanwhile, Public Health England's local health protection teams will double in size and will increase further ahead of winter. It said that there are 200 mobile testing units already in operation and over 200 walk-in centres will be opened across the country by October. So if you get an unexpected knock at the door, grab your phone and start recording. You don't have to hold it up if you don't want to, but get the conversation caught on video, as it's going to be very interesting to see and hear what these people have to say and how they go about telling you that you are on house arrest for 10 days. Also, it might be the only thing to prevent you from not being fired from not turning in from work. On the 18th of February and the 3rd of March, we spoke about Inspector Ian Kane from Thames Valley Police, who was under investigation for misconduct after he made a false report of robbery to another police force, claimed on the insurance, and also lied about an amount of money owed to him from the police station tuck shop. The misconduct hearing was due to happen at the start of March, but was halted due to unforeseen circumstances. Well, Kane has now had his hearing, and for making false robbery reports, claiming on his insurance, which is fraud by deception and insurance fraud, and lying about the money owed to him, he has been given another chance. What that means exactly, I don't really know, although I'm presuming, as the reports I've seen don't say specifically, that he's been given a final written warning. The Thames Valley Police Inspector was found to have breached the standards of professional behaviour in respect of integrity, but it seems he wasn't found guilty of breaching professional behaviour in respect of honesty. It was said that had he been found guilty of all three accusations, he would have been fired without notice. But the reports I've seen are no more specific in what accusations he was found to be guilty over and which ones he wasn't. More cretinous care home carers, this time in Worcestershire, as police launched a probe last week into suspected willful neglect at 2 care homes. A man and a woman have been arrested by West Mercia police following concerns raised about suspected neglect at 2 residential care homes, Brooklands in Northwick Road, Evesham, and the Hawthorns in Walkmill Drive, Wychbold, near Droitwich. The arrests come following an inspection by the care homes regulator, the Care Quality Commission, in July. Both homes are run by Unicorn Limited, based in Rayners Lane, Pinner, Middlesex in Greater London. Worcestershire County Council is now looking to find alternative accommodation for some 7 residents at the homes, with residents at the Hawthorns already moved out according to police reports. A spokeswoman for the council said adult social care services in Worcestershire have been working with Safeguarding, local health services and the Care Quality Commission regarding a number of concerns raised regarding Brooklands and the Hawthorns residential care homes. The police are also conducting a separate investigation. Social workers are now working to find alternative accommodation and care for the 7 individuals who currently reside in these homes to ensure they are safe and well supported. West Mercia Police have said their inquiries are ongoing. I mean, is this becoming a new epidemic with the amount of care homes we keep hearing about where staff are abusing or neglecting their residents in one way or another, including abuse that some police forces have decided not to investigate even when there's video evidence of the abuse taking place? Please, if you do have someone in a care home or residential home, check on them often. Keep an eye on changing behaviour and report any concerns you have. This can't be allowed to happen, and it is so easy for it to go unnoticed. West Mercia Police Constable Jamie Holloway has denied causing death by dangerous driving as he appeared at Worcester Crown Court last Wednesday. 49-year-old PC Jamie Holloway from Bewdley was charged after a 2-year inquiry into the crash involving a BMW X5 police vehicle, in which 53-year-old David Shaw was sadly killed on the A449 near Hartlebury on May 28th, on the A449 near Hartlebury on May 28th, 2018. Mr. Shaw suffered multiple injuries in the crash and died in hospital. Granting him bail, Judge Nicholas Cartwright said a trial has been fixed at defence barrister Matthew Butt's convenience. I'm afraid it is a long way away, the 9th of August next year. There will be a pre-trial review on the 28th of May of next year. 24-year-old Merseyside Police Constable Lauren Susan Johnson appeared at Liverpool Crown Court on Friday the 14th of August after pleading guilty to a charge of misconduct in public office. The charges are as a result of the Police Anti-Corruption Unit, which is nowhere near as busy as it should be. Although there is no real information I've been able to find yet as to what this actually relates to, other than between January the 6th, 2017 and December the 11th, 2018, she, without reasonable excuse and not for a legitimate policing purpose, accessed sensitive information. Johnson had already resigned from Merseyside Police in May of 2019, but she appeared on Friday to face the full force of the law, just as we would rightly expect. After all, our police are supposed to be held in the highest regard of trustworthiness and honesty. Pillars of the community, if you will, the kind of people youngsters look up to and aspire to be like. And so in order to ensure that the next wave of police constables are those very people who we can trust with our lives and property, and considering that misconduct in public office can carry a maximum sentence of life imprisonment, Johnson was sentenced to 10 months, suspended for 12 months. Because that's really going to teach any other copper that's thinking of trying it, isn't it? I mean, what a deterrent. And yet again, let me put this into perspective for you. 18 months suspended for 2 years for growing a bit of weed. I do find myself wondering if the police themselves are going to be held accountable for data protection breaches, seeing as this happened. And the only sensitive information the police hold is on people. So someone's data was breached. But I'm pretty sure the police know full well that there's no chance of the public ever finding out whose data was breached. So, yet again, they get away with more failures. But let's look on the bright side for a moment. At least other police who have done, are doing, or are thinking about misconduct in public office know they will pretty much walk away from any charges. It's not like we don't want to encourage decent people to join the police now, is it? A West Midlands Police Constable, PC Paul Birch, has been given a final written warning for a hate crime after he was found to have breached professional standards for equality and diversity, as well as authority, respect and courtesy. Although other allegations that PC Birch and another officer allegedly colluded over their accounts after PC Birch's police dog had seized and injured a man who was with some travellers at the former North Worcestershire golf course Northfield in September 2017 and was subsequently arrested, were dropped. The Independent Office for Police Conduct completed an investigation in May 2018 and forwarded their file to the Crown Prosecution Service for them to consider charges. The CPS charged PC Birch with racially aggravated wounding in October that year, and at a trial in August 2019, a judge at Birmingham Crown Court agreed with a defence submission that there was no case to answer and directed the jury to find the officer not guilty. What a surprise! Although why would a jury need to be directed to find a defendant not guilty if there was no case to answer? I don't quite understand that. If the evidence shows there was no offence, then how did it make it to court in the first place? And why was the court not content to let the jury find the constable not guilty of their own volition? Oh yeah, another cover-up. Silly me. The IOPC investigation found a case to answer for gross misconduct against both officers and directed West Midlands Police to hold a disciplinary hearing after the force disagreed, following the trial verdict. IOPC Regional Director for the West Midlands, Derek Campbell, said footage of the incident during which the man was injured by the police dog was circulated widely on social media at the time. After a complaint was made, we looked at how and why the animal was deployed and whether that was an appropriate use of force. It became clear from our investigation that the language used by PC Birch against the travellers present could be deemed to be discriminatory. A disciplinary panel has now ruled it was unacceptable and amounted to gross misconduct. So a crime one of us mere members of the public would have been dragged over the coals for, and this filthy cretinous cop gets a good old police privilege and has his word accepted by the court, rather than allowing the jury to come to their own conclusions. I mean, it's not like the jury can be trusted to come to a conclusion of their own based on the evidence presented, is it? A couple of weeks ago, we spoke about 49-year-old PC David Bunting from Greater Manchester Police, who was caught on camera stealing £70 from a man who Bunting was tasked with visiting for a welfare check with paramedics. Bunting was jailed for 3 months, but an appeal against the sentence was immediately lodged. However, after hearing the facts and mitigation at Preston Crown Court, Judge Beverley Lunt, sitting with 2 magistrates, dismissed the appeal, and Bunting is now having to serve the full 3-month sentence, which, as we know, will only see him do 6 weeks. Judge Lunt said this offence being such a gross breach of trust, it could undermine the trust that all members of the public put in the police. All members of the public? Wouldn't go that far. Some of us actually expect nothing less. She said the victim was shocked to see the police officer in full uniform stealing the money as he left. He had to get a neighbour to check what he was seeing, Judge Lunt said. The whole purpose of him being there was to help. That makes this theft from a vulnerable man all the more serious. Judge Lunt ruled the 3-month sentence was not wrong in principle and was not manifestly excessive. And I agree, it certainly isn't excessive. In fact, I don't think it's proportionate for the massive finger up that this cop has given to the public. Bunting was also ordered to pay £70 back in compensation alongside court costs of £85 and £122 victim surcharge. In a statement, Greater Manchester Police said, on Friday, February 21st, 2020, police were called to reports of a theft after a police officer responded to a concern for welfare incident the previous day in Oldham. Greater Manchester Police's Professional Standards Branch were informed and began an investigation which is currently ongoing. On Friday, January 10th, 2020, David Bunting, 49, of Shawcloth Road, Rochdale, was sentenced to 3 months in jail after pleading guilty to 1 count of theft. Now, you would think that when a serious or even non-serious vehicle accident occurs, the police would have a checklist, a series of important steps to take in a particular order, something that they would have learned on their training and whilst attending other road traffic collisions. The health and safety of those involved in the accident being a priority, for example. Well, it now appears that police are adding to that list of important steps to take when attending a vehicle collision, including going out of their way to set up cameras pointing towards the flow of traffic, looking for rubberneckers. Derbyshire Police have announced that they will set up cameras near accidents to catch rubberneckers who film traffic collisions whilst behind the wheel. Now, although I don't agree with people using their mobile phones while driving, I'm pretty sure that earning a few quid from finding people for filming is not exactly a priority for the police on the scene of a road traffic collision. The force confirmed it intends to prosecute those who record accidents whilst driving after attending 3 crashes on the M1 last Friday and spotting dozens of disrespectful motorists filming the scene. Photographs shared by the Derbyshire Roads Policing Unit shows cameras installed at the roadside near collisions to catch motorists in the act. This footage is said to then be reviewed, and anyone seen filming on a mobile phone or camera while behind the wheel will be issued a notice of intended prosecution by post. So not only will they need the extra resources to set the cameras up when they should be dealing with the incident, but they also need the extra resources of someone reviewing the video footage, which could take hours, when they should be, no doubt, dealing with real crimes that have happened in which people have suffered loss, injury or damage. Derbyshire Police detailed this initiative on the 8th of August and in a statement said, It is understandable to have a high level of curiosity about why you've been held up in traffic, but your own driving shouldn't suffer as a result. For a while now, that next step for a particular hardcore group of these elastic-necked drivers is to fiddle about on their phone, switch it to camera mode and record the collision scene, all whilst controlling between 1 and 40 tonnes of metal, surrounded by dozens of others doing the same. It's disrespectful and illegal. It's a simple case of driving without due care and attention. The driver should be focusing on what's ahead and not what's on the other carriageway and their phone. So here's some free advice for you all. If you want to record an incident, either get someone in the car to do it for you or simply pull over and record. Maybe being extra careful not to stand in front of any cameras that the police may have strategically placed in their revenue generating exercise. I do get that being on your phone is dangerous whilst driving, but most people who crash at accident sites from rubbernecking are likely going to crash anyway. But just because you're putting cameras up to catch people doesn't mean that people still won't attempt to film, which would be even more dangerous as they're going to be concentrating on how to position their camera so not to be seen by the police's cameras, or they'd be inclined to look anyway without filming it. Personally, I think it's a waste of police's time. I don't think there's enough serious incidents from rubberneckers to warrant the cost and manpower when they could be using it for things such as child abuse investigations. But that is only my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments. A very big thank you to every single one of you who supports the channel. I realise this is an odd one to put out on a Sunday, but from tomorrow, things will be back to normal Monday to Friday. And that is all I have for you today. Please like, share, comment and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts, as I know many of you will. And until next time, stay safe, look after each other, film the police, and of course, other officials. Good night, all. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you like the content and you'd like to help support the channel, you can do so. In the description of every video, there are some links to ways that you're able to help support the channel so I can continue putting out content. If you're unable to help us in that way, hit that subscribe button up the top there. If you haven't already, become a subscriber. That is support enough. Share the videos, comment, like, it all helps. If you're looking for something else to watch, up top there is my latest video. Down the bottom there is a video that YouTube recommends for you.